Hey, hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about why your bad diet might make you sick or why it could lead to that in the future, even if it isn't right now. So there's a lot of reasons that this can happen. And I think people kind of feel like they sort of intuitively know that eating poorly will lead to poor health, but they don't maybe exactly know why. That seems like an obvious thing. You know, you've been told, eat your vegetables, you kind of know you're supposed to eat a certain number of servings a day, but people don't necessarily know exactly why not doing this might lead to, how that kind of cascade of events that lead to poor health or maybe a more serious health issue or disease down the road. And so there are a lot of reasons behind it, but I'm going to focus on one, and that's really nutrient density in your diet. So what happens when we're eating healthy foods? And I'm going to focus on just a few bits of micronutrients because we could really, there's a lot of stuff in food, a lot of healthy stuff in food, a lot of not so healthy stuff in some food. So I'm going to focus on just a few to not get too deep in the weeds here and keep it a little bit high level. So if we're eating a lot of nutrient dense foods, we're eating a lot of fruits, vegetables, healthy meats, fish, that kind of stuff, refraining from processed foods or junk foods, fast foods, if we can, then we're getting a lot of what we call nutrient dense foods, which means they have a lot of vitamins, they have a lot of minerals, they have a lot of good stuff in it for us, not just energy. So if we talk about energy, that's really calories. Calories are a measure of energy, and that's all. So we can't tell how healthy something is by how many calories are in it. That doesn't really give us any indication. It's more of what are those calories made up of, what are coming with those calories. So if we're eating a healthy diet and we're getting all these, the recommended fruits, vegetables, all this stuff, then we're ingesting a lot of these beneficial micronutrients, vitamins. That's the one we're going to focus specifically on. When we talk about micronutrients, we're really talking about vitamins, minerals, some other things are in foods that are, again, a little more in depth. But let's just focus on the vitamins now. So your body is using vitamins and minerals, all these things, all the time to run the thousands of metabolic and biological processes that your body has to carry out all of the time for you to survive, for life to keep going, for you to grow, for you to regenerate, heal, whatever it is. So we're always using these supplies. And if we're eating a healthy diet, then we're regularly getting the supply of the things we need. Makes sense. To create something, you have to have some input. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So we have to take energy in, and we have to take in these building blocks to carry out these fundamental processes of life. So let's think of something simple. And like I said, if we're eating healthy, we're getting those things at least as much as we are using. And realistically, if we're eating enough healthy food, then we can store some of these vitamins, minerals, everything else that we need for later use if we have too many in the system. Now, there are some caveats to that. There are some vitamins that we don't store, water-soluble vitamins. If you don't eat them regularly, things like B complex vitamins and vitamin C, then those will be excreted from your body because we can't store them because they are water-soluble. So those typically go out in your urine. That's why we want to be eating fruits and vegetables every day to be getting those water-soluble vitamins in. But let's say we go through a period where we don't have those foods available. And really this is it's an evolutionary trick your body or, adaptation your body has done to be able to store some vitamins in case there are lean times. We're going across the savanna in Africa and there's no vegetation worth eating for quite some time, or there's no animals available to eat. And, we have a little bit of stored energy. Maybe there's some fat. In really dire situations, we can use some muscle tissue to continue our energy needs and then use some vitamins that we've stored to continue on these processes. So we're able to store a lot of these fat-soluble vitamins, some in fatty tissue, but mainly in the liver. So let's say that we're doing this. We're using the vitamins that we need. We're storing up some extra so our body can run the way it's supposed to, barring other issues. If we're taking in enough energy and we're taking in these vitamins, the body kind of goes the way it's supposed to go. Now, again, let's say we go through a lean time. We're not getting these vitamins. Our body continues to go through those processes, but we start depleting the stores that we have in this fatty tissue and also in our liver. If we do that chronically, that's what we need to think about what happens. So our body has evolved to go pretty long periods of time without these inputs and survive. But in the modern world, we've done something that the body was not necessarily prepared for, which we've given ourselves the ability to eat a lot of energy without eating a lot of nutrition. What I mean by that is we're able to eat a lot of calories without eating hardly any vitamins, minerals, micronutrients, which kind of creates this weird conundrum for the body where it has the energy to keep going, but it doesn't have these small building blocks for us to keep going in the most efficient and effective way. So let's focus on one just like vitamin D. And, if you know a lot about vitamin D, then you probably know that most of the vitamin D you're going to get is coming from sunlight. But if we are in the winter, or you are really far north, or you have really dark skin, then you're probably going to have to rely on vitamin D from your diet. And so let's say recently I hope you've heard that vitamin D is very integral in your immune system. So let's think about how eating a modern diet of processed foods could end up leading to illness. If we eat in a way, let's say that we're not eating any food that has vitamin D in it. Maybe we did for a while, but we go on a stint where we really just kind of forget about our health. It doesn't become a focal point. And so we're eating, stuff out of a box. Maybe you have crazy work hours. You're not into prepping your food. So you're eating a lot of microwave meals. If you turn over a box of a microwave meal, and I don't care what type it is, I don't care if it is a healthy frozen meal, you turn them over and look at you'll see your fat, carbohydrates, and protein, but then look under that where the micronutrients are. Most of the time it's going to be empty. There are none. And it's not that there's probably none, there has to be essentially some, but the levels are so minuscule as to not even be worth reporting, or not even be allowed into the levels that someone like the USDA or the FDA would be able to let you say that, hey, yeah, it's in here. It's in such negligible amounts. So the amount of processing that a lot of food goes through really strips food of all of its value, with the exception of energy, calories. So what that does is it now gives our body energy to keep going. We can keep moving, maybe not very well, but we'll keep going. And these processes will continue to carry on, but with a lot of missing building blocks. So back to the vitamin D. Vitamin D is critical for depositing calcium around your body to grow, heal, remodel bones. Now, even if you are at your max height, you're a fully mature adult, your body is regularly going through a process of breaking down and rebuilding bones with something called osteoclast and osteoblast. That's way more, more in depth than we need to go in this video, but just know that pretty much every cellular system in your body, which is all of them, they're all made up of cells, are constantly being broken down and rebuilt to get rid of damaged or problem cells, and then replenish them with what we want. And so vitamin D is critical to that. So if we have vitamin D stored in our liver, we're not getting it from our diet because we're only eating processed food. We're not getting it from the sun because we're not going outside. It's winter. We live in, way up north in the UK or in London, or even the Northeast here, whatever. You have really dark skin. You're not getting vitamin D from the sun. You're not getting it in your food. So we start using up everything we have in our liver. Now, if we go into a really chronic state where we're not getting anything from the diet or the sun, eventually we get to a point where we start getting low on this vitamin D, because the processes don't stop. The building the bone and depositing all this, and granted, vitamin D is critical for a bunch of other processes, but we're just going to focus on that one because it's simple. So it's being used to get this calcium to where it needs to be able to create these bones. Well, what happens if those levels are critically low? We don't know. You're not looking at scans regularly of your cortical bone to see is it getting thicker or thinner or whatever, or it's not something we can see, and so we're not aware that we're running through all our stores of vitamin D, and then all of a sudden some sort of pathogen comes along, something bacterial or viral that we're faced with, And because we've used up all of our vitamin D and haven't been replenishing it, all of a sudden, what could have been a minor cold becomes something very serious. Now, this is the case for any type of micronutrient that we should be eating regularly, but we aren't. And you can see how much of our society and our culture really revolves around these highly processed, just totally nutritionally bankrupt foods that are hyper palatable. They taste extremely good, and they are very inexpensive because a lot of these very low nutritive foods are cheap. Sugar is cheap, flour cheap, white flour, all this stuff. It's really cheap to get a hold of, and you can make a lot of products out of it. And if people are struggling, they don't have food or they don't have the knowledge. And I think that's the bigger thing, because you can eat healthfully inexpensively, but people not having the knowledge of what they're eating, they think they're eating the healthy frozen meal or, the healthy packaged this or that, not realizing that they are eating a diet that is essentially empty of micronutrients. And so while they feel satiated for a little bit, they are starving. They are malnourished. They might be 50 pounds overweight and be chronically malnourished. This is a common state of being in the Western world, particularly. We think of really poor places where we see people, horrible photos of children that you can see their ribs, but their stomach's distended. That's what, when people think malnourished, they think, they think of horrible pictures of prisoners of war or something where they're skin and bones. If you see someone walking around 50 pounds overweight, there's a very good chance they're malnourished because they're eating extremely calorie dense foods that have almost no micronutrients in it, which leads to this sort of catch-22. And I'll probably make a whole other video on this, but essentially, because you're not getting the micronutrients your body is making you crave things that it recognizes as having micronutrients, because your body, your brain, and this whole system developed over hundreds of thousands of years has not caught up to the modern way of processing food. So, we taste things, we see things, and we think, that has this micronutrient in it, which we need. Your body recognizes that. Now you start craving more food and you're eating more of it, but it's still nutritionally empty. And so it keeps trying to get these nutrients in by making you eat more and more, but the nutrient just isn't there. So you're getting tons of energy. You're getting tons of, and when I say energy, I mean calories. I don't mean that you feel energetic. You could feel like you can't hardly get out of the bed, but you're eating tons and tons of calories. And so you're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and are still malnourished while eventually being obese. That's how we get to this kind of place where we have, the state of the world we're in. We're talking about a majority of the people in the country are overweight or obese, and a very, very small majority of people are considered metabolically healthy. And so this is just one way that we get to that place. Going back to what I was saying, this is just one way that a modern processed poor diet really makes you sick, because your body continues on these processes because you have all the energy to do it, calories, but you don't have these minute little important building blocks to make these processes run efficiently in the way that they are supposed to. And so people become very chronically deficient in a lot of different nutrients and never know it. Because you might think, you have such chronically low levels of certain nutrients that you could die. Like if you get something pretty simple, some small respiratory infection, you could die. But before that, never having felt bad or worse than most people that I talk to, if they start working with me, they get on an improved diet, or not working with whoever they work with, they come to it on their own. It doesn't matter. People start eating better and start taking better care of themselves. One of the things you most commonly hear is, I didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt good. That could be you. I don't know. I hope not. I hope you're doing the things to take care of yourself. But I've definitely gone through periods where I haven't taken the best care of myself. And when I get back to that better place, I always think, why did I let that happen? Well, because it's a gradual descent. It doesn't go one day you eat bad and then all of a sudden you're unhealthy. These things take time. And that's why usually over time, particularly if someone is healthy and very active and they start getting to a habit of eating poorly, it doesn't take long, and not sleeping, it doesn't take long for them to start feeling really bad and get back on the routine they know, particularly because their metabolisms are already high from being active and being healthy. And so your body starts running through all of your resources faster, whereas someone who is chronically unhealthy and chronically eats poorly has typically a slow metabolism because your body is running so low on all these nutrients that it tries to slow down the processes, because even though you're 50 pounds overweight, you're essentially starving to death. Crazy to think, but that's the way it is. And so running all these processes, leaching all of these important vitamins and minerals out of your body. That's why you might see people that look somewhat seemingly healthy, again, by what standard? But I guess by our current standard, where they're not terribly overweight or they aren't, skin and bones, a young person that all of a sudden snaps a bone in an unusual way, something that shouldn't have happened, like a low energy impact, and all of a sudden they break a bone. And then you look at their diet and realize they've been eating so much processed food that the amount of salt that they're taking in is through the roof. Well, calcium binds to salt. Your bones are made of calcium as well as some other things, phosphorus. But that's obviously a big component. The majority of the calcium in your body is stored in your bones. And if you're eating super high levels of sodium, then they will bind to calcium and you will urinate them out. So you do that once, fine, no big deal. If you are chronically eating, 1,000% of the amount of sodium you're supposed to be eating a day, you're going to start leaching calcium out of your bones. Couple that with one of the most common deficiencies in the country, vitamin D deficiency. Well, now you're not doing a very good job of remaking the bone that's getting torn down. Next thing you know, you do something minor and snap. So we don't see all these processes leaching important things out of our body, and typically not until it's too late, but typically until something bad happens. You get really sick, you're getting colds all the time, you keep getting strep throat, you keep getting whatever, or something breaks. Or if you're lucky enough, you go get a blood test and they say, hey, you are chronically deficient in these areas. We really got to work on this diet. So going back to that, if we want to try to head this off, then the best way that you can do that, again, barring some sort of disease that you have, then eating a nutrient-dense, healthy diet is a good way to stave off illness, because you're constantly replenishing those vitamins and minerals you need. And so even if there are times where you slip up or you have a weekend where, you travel and you don't eat well, whatever, well, you probably have enough of those good nutrients banked up in your liver and your fatty tissue and your bones, whatever it is, for, you probably aren't going to feel good come Sunday night, but you're not going to get sick. So this is just something to think about. And I would go into other reasons when we get into things like pesticides and trans fats and hydrogenated oils, all kinds of stuff like that. They're also in processed foods that are leading to tons and tons of illness with the modern diet. But for this one, I just really wanted people to understand that you can be eating a lot of food and still be very malnourished, because the foods, regardless of what their packaging may look like, could be totally devoid of any type of nutrients that your body really needs. And so it's robbing your stored up resources to continue on these processes. So something to think about if you, if you feel like you could be in this situation and you just don't know what to do, like you don't really, you're confused because, the package it looks healthy. It has leaves on it, or it's, it has some nature something or other is the name of it. And so it seems like it should be healthy. And so you feel like you're getting bogged down in that. You don't really know what the good foods really are. I would be happy to help. Or maybe you don't know how much you really should be eating or how to measure this. There's some programs that we use that I think do a really good job. And that's been very eye-opening for people I've worked with that are eating, I prescribe them macronutrient targets. And we go through a week of their, the first week we go through their macros, but I'll also check all of their micronutrients in the program we're using to track it. And even though they're bang on their macros and maybe they're already starting to lose weight, you can see that their micronutrients are shot. Like they have to be deficient if they've been eating this way anytime at all. And so that's just a ticking time bomb. If you're being really active because you're getting all these energy requirements in, but you're super deficient in vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, A, whatever, any of them, D and A being critical to your immune system as well as C, I can look at that stuff and say, like, it's not long before you're out because you're sick or something goes bad. So this is what we need to address. Good job hitting your macros. Now let's work on these micronutrients. So if you think you might need some help on something like that, you don't care about losing weight, you don't care about gaining muscle, you don't care about it, you just want to have a healthier diet, I might be able to help. And you can message me here. There'll be other ways soon to get involved with that, to get in touch with me, to set up plans. But for now, just let me know. So I appreciate you watching. I try to keep it somewhat simple. If there's something in there that you would like more detail on, please let me know. I'd be happy to make more videos. I think this stuff is important, particularly now with what's going on in the world. So that's it. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Be healthy, happy, do the right thing, and look forward to talking to you again soon.